I can't tell you how much fun it is to be in this room and hear all of your voices and have everyone be together. A few of us have been on this floor for the past 20 months, and it's been very quiet. So if you see a dust bunny or two, maybe let us know, because we have been anxiously awaiting your arrival to come back and be a part of all the work that's going on. I know many of you have been working extra hard, 2 or 3 or 4 jobs during the pandemic, and we're glad that you took time out of your schedule to be with us. I'm Angela Farley, the CEO and CFO here at the Dallas Regional Chamber. So glad that you're here. I actually started at the Chamber in the Education and Workforce Department. I was a Dallas ISD kid. My mom was a Dallas ISD teacher, came to the Chamber to work on education reform, and I'm so excited to be able to introduce our Senior Vice President of Education and Workforce, Jared Toussaint. Jared, where are you? Oh, there you are, all the way at the back. So happy to have him here. We also have Elizabeth Cottle McLean, who focuses on higher education and workforce. Michael Wood here, and Sarah. Is Sarah probably out working? Out working for us. So that is the department here. They love to work with all of you and be of help to you. So when it comes to times like this, what I'm hearing from all of our member companies, no matter where I go, is talent, talent, talent. There's a war for talent. We don't have enough people. We're not seeing enough folks with the right skills. Wages are rising because we need talent. So there's no better time to have a focus here on education and workforce, because we want to be able to grow the great businesses that are already here, and we want everyone in the region to be able to be a part of the prosperity of the region. So we want that engagement from every corner of our region and every county that's represented here. So our education team works very closely with businesses, universities, K-12, nonprofits, every type of group in order to try to come to solutions that are going to help. And it's especially important right now, so that although DFW is coming out of this pandemic guns blazing, we've had more than 100 live projects right now that are looking at this area from California and New York mostly. We've got to figure out how to have enough workers for the companies that are already here. And so part of that is our work on trying to recruit talent to this region, but we want to engage the talent that's here already. So I'm excited about the event today. Really want to thank our co-presenting sponsors, BGSF and Texas Mutual. Thank you, Bill. Our gold sponsors, Amazon and Bank of America. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Vicki. And our silver sponsor, Encore. So thank you to all of you. Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Bill Jackson from Texas Mutual to give a few remarks. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Angela. It's good to get to see a lot of faces, like she said, and get us together for a change. This is great. This is great. The energy in the room is super. I'm the vice president, the regional vice president for Texas Mutual, which is really the northern half of Texas. Draw a line from Lufkin to El Paso and all points north. And that's what me and my team work on as our focus. We're proud to be the co-presenting sponsor along with BGSF today for a gathering of our workforce leaders that we'll be hearing from. So Texas Mutual has been a longtime supporter of workforce development strategies and initiatives. As the state's largest provider of workers' compensation insurance, we are laser focused on creating a stronger, safer Texas. Currently, over 70,000 businesses and 1.5 million workers look to us to keep them safe and get home every night safely to their families. That's a responsibility that, along with their employers, we take very seriously. Because of our unique position, both supporting businesses and workers, we understand the importance of work. When the Texas economy is strong, so are we. We believe everyone benefits when our economy is stronger and when everyone has the equal opportunity to enjoy economic prosperity. Over the last 4 years, Texas Mutual has invested over $11 million in workforce development initiatives as well as safety training. We're proud to support the Dallas Regional Chamber, all of our friends here at the DRC in leading the private sector in our workforce conversations. So today we're going to hear from state and local workforce leaders on current workforce trends, what the impact of COVID, of course, has had on our workforce, and innovative strategies to address industry workforce needs. So I would be remiss, Elizabeth would be mad if I didn't go over the format that we're going to be going through today. First, we're going to hear from Texas Workforce Commission Chairman Bryan Daniel for our keynote address. Following his address, we'll hear a presentation from Workforce Solutions Greater Dallas on the current state of our workforce here in North Texas. Then we're going to hear from a panel of distinguished leaders that have gathered to discuss workforce development because they're on the front lines of that, and we look forward to hearing their ideas. And then we're going to wrap all this up and be done by 1:30, so we are on the clock. So now it's my pleasure to tell you more about the chairman that's with us today, Bryan Daniel from the Texas Workforce Commission. Chairman Daniel serves as the commission's representative for the public, promoting and supporting the growth of Texas' world-class employers and talented workforce. In his capacity, his office advances innovative workforce and economic development strategies in collaboration with the TWC's education and industry partners to preserve the Texas competitive edge as the best place to work in the world. Prior to his appointment, Chairman Daniel served as the Executive Director of the Office of Governor's Economic Development Division. He also worked in the insurance industry, and the name of the company he worked for is longer than Texas Mutual. The Agricultural Workers Mutual Auto Insurance Company. He was the Vice President of Business Development. He was also the State Director of Rural Development in President George W. Bush's presidential administration. We're so grateful to have you with us today, Bryan. Look forward to giving you the floor and hearing your keynote address. Give it up for Bryan Daniel, our chairman.
It's been a long time. I was in this room once before. It was like another life ago. You know, I'm glad to be here live on stage. I'll tell you why. I'm self-diagnosed. WebMD is fairly silent on this issue, which is my main source of healthcare. And I have what's called Zoom fatigue. I'll tell you why. It's physical. I think it's psychological, but it's a lot of pressure on me. I mean, you think about like the choices: hair and makeup. You got picture day hair. You got to have Hollywood style makeup to go on Zoom. Wardrobe. Like what pairs with shorts and flip flops? How do you do that? Should I remodel my house or just get a cool picture for my background? Do I need a green screen in my house? These are weighty decisions that people have to make when they use Zoom. And I mean, to be fair, I miss flip-flops, but it's good to be somewhere live and live in color. So let's talk about some things. We have been, the technical term for this is we have been on an economic tilt-a-whirl. You ever ridden the tilt-a-whirl? It goes up and down, side to side, turn you over, turn you back. We've done all of that. It's been really interesting. So this wasn't a recession. It has recessionary kind of numbers, right? But it's really not a recession. It's really a disaster. Like I can show you Hurricane Harvey numbers that will mimic the pandemic numbers a lot better than any kind of recessionary numbers that we saw in 09, 10, 11 in that time frame. And so if you think about it in terms of a disaster, it really does shorten kind of your entry point and your end point. And it's important for us to do that because I think the way we look at this can really help us get to where we need to be. I say that because people are really wanting to have pre-pandemic and pandemic and post-pandemic as timelines. Oh, that was pre-pandemic. Well, no, this is a post-pandemic thing. Oh, that was during the pandemic. Like I didn't get my hair cut during the pandemic. I really didn't get my hair cut during the pandemic. And we can't do that. We can't do that. So February 2020, we had the highest month of employment, meaning the total number of Texans working in employment. That was in February 2020. That's actually not that long ago. It tumbles off in March because of the pandemic. But the recovery I've watched different media wrestle with when to start the recovery. But the start date is simple. It's the day after you hit bottom. That's when the recovery starts. That's when any economic recovery starts. It's the day after you hit the bottom, which is like May of last year. Meaning we've been in a recovery for well over, 18 months or whatever that is. And if you look at it like that, some of these numbers, I think, start to get a little bit clearer, but only clearer from the standpoint of where we need to head from here. Everybody with me? I'm not an economist by training. I'm actually a communications person by training. I've had to learn a lot of economics in this job. One thing that's always been fascinating to me is the number of economists that don't actually have anything but recessions and recoveries. There are a large number of economists that basically term the time period between recessions as recoveries, which means we're in a recovery all the time. That's not true. We're in an expansion, and expansions are good. And we'll begin to see how these numbers kind of start to pile up on us, and maybe, hopefully, I can convince you today, we're really kind of poised on a point where we can do some real good for the state as if we already have it. And it kind of starts with how we think about things. So if the recovery starts the day after we hit bottom, we're well into this recovery period. And looking at sort of pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, that becomes really blurry lines around it. The other thing I've seen a lot of is this interest in us getting back to a new normal. What was the old normal? I would need to know more about that before I would agree to any kind of new normal. I'm not sure I'm all that interested in normal. Here's what I do know for an absolute fact, though. This new normal, there's nothing normal about anything. What we will have, though, are new terms, new tools, and new tactics. You don't need a new normal. The reason you don't need a new normal is this. The economy's on a continuum. It's on a straight line. Did y'all watch that, anybody watch that Loki show over on Disney Plus? Is that not mind-blowing? That's the way the economy works. Just like that timeline. Just kidding. It's a lot more finite than that. But it is on a continuum. The economy doesn't loop back around. Now, it'll mimic itself from the past, but it's new every day when it wakes up. Brand new economy. Every single day. Watch the stock market operate. Tell me that's not true. And so you can't try to get back to some form of normal in the economy because it's recreating itself all the time. And that's why we got to look, frankly, at new terms and new tactics and new tools. That's really going to inform us. This economic tilt-a-whirl has been amazing. We lost nearly 2 million jobs in this state during the pandemic, which I would characterize as roughly a 60-day period between March and May of 2020. You can extend that into June or July, and I wouldn't argue with you. It's just sort of how I define it for myself. You got to remember, we're celebrating the fact that we set this record in February for the most number of people working, and 30 days after that, we had 60 times the number of unemployment claims that we had in all of 2019. 60 times. 30 days after that, our phone rang 16 million times in 1 week at the Workforce Commission. Do you know how many operators you have to take 16 million phone calls in a week? The answer is 31,000. We never hired that many, unfortunately. We couldn't find 31,000 operators that could work, but we did hire 4 call centers to take the volume. You probably read about the fact that we were having a hard time answering the phones. There's a great story to tell. I have 20 minutes today, so I can't tell you all the great stories, but there's some great things that came out of that while we were trying to fix this problem. We did, for a time period, have a hard time answering 16 million phone calls a week, but you got to remember 95% of those claims were getting filed online, and ultimately 9 million initial claims were filed. We paid out $55 billion in unemployment benefits, both state and federal. About just under $8 billion of that was the state share, billion with a B. The Workforce Commission's annual budget's like $2 billion. All of this in a time period that you would typically, we're talking years worth of work in months that's coming to us. And then jobs started getting added back to the economy. In the last 17 months, we've missed 1 month of economic expansion. And that was because we had a little resettling of things. We had to sort of retreat so we could advance. Last month, we added 5 times more jobs than we did February 2020, our record-setting month. We're within 125,000 people being employed of our all-time record. And we have as many people on unemployment today, roughly, as we had the same week in 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016. That's called a recovery. Now, there's some things about that recovery that are different, and that's why we got to have new terms, new tools, new tactics. We still have probably double the number of people that self-identify as unemployed as we saw in 2019. Meaning, we have the same number of people on unemployment benefits, but when we ask people, are you unemployed, about double say that. That's why the unemployment rate's double right now what it was in 2019. That 300,000 people self-identify as unemployed for several different reasons. Now, we know the reasons that they say, but I will tell you, I don't care what the reasons are. If you're unemployed and you don't want to be, we need to fix that. It doesn't matter why you're unemployed. I have a disability. There's ways to work around that. I have childcare issues. We will have invested $6 billion in childcare in the last 2 years, all via the federal government due to the pandemic. Childcare issues are solvable. I'm caring for an ill relative. That one's harder to do. But we can do it. Well, I didn't have the right kind of training. We can fix that. It is new terms, new tools, and new tactics that help us do that. And all of it was born out of this tilt-a-whirl adventure that we've been on, that really, for the 18 months that we've invested in that, we find ourselves right back to where we were in February 2020. That's nice. Only from the standpoint of we can set the pandemic aside, understand what happened during that pandemic, and see what lessons we've learned to do that. So what kind of new terms, Bryan? Well, lots of new terms. I've learned some. AI. AI is a new term. AI is not a new term to me, it's a new meaning. My training's all in agriculture. And AI is important in agriculture. It lets you get new genetics in your herd quickly. It will let you get your choice of bulls that you don't actually have to own. See, AI in agriculture does not mean artificial intelligence. Something entirely different. We've added a new term, this artificial intelligence. And it's not intelligence, really. Computers don't think. They simply tell you back what you told them. But what's interesting is they populate their own database when they do it. We have a chatbot. His name's Larry. I'm uncomfortable naming a computer program, but everybody told me we needed to do that. Larry answers questions. That's what Larry does. He's neither proud of that nor not, because he's really not alive. He's just he's a bunch of zeros and ones. But Larry gets excited when he gets to answer people's questions. But Larry alerts us when he gets a lot of questions that he doesn't know the answer to, so we can tell him what the answer is so that he can answer those. I'm uncomfortable with that. I saw that movie, Space Odyssey. I didn't like what HAL 9000 did. I think the computer should open the pod bay door when you need the pod bay door open, and I don't need a computer back-talking me. I got 4,500 employees that will back-talk me. Larry's not bad for back-talking, but he wants more information. Yeah, if it's HAL 9000 not opening the door, that's okay. It's when we get into the T1000, that's a different movie. But that Terminator stuff kind of scares me a little bit. Because in the Terminator, the machine was writing its own code. I saw a machine writing its own code recently at a technology company. So the computers are writing their own code. Makes me wonder what Larry does at night when we're not all up there. These new terms like artificial intelligence are going to drive some things we do. Larry, the chatbot's just the start. We've got fully interactive technology in our computers now. And you got to remember, our unemployment insurance system is powered by a mainframe computer. Mainframe. You heard me right. This young man right here has never worked on a green screen dummy terminal. But I have. It doesn't use punch cards, but that's because it's advanced technology. It needs to be replaced. It was scheduled to be replaced right before the pandemic. But let me tell you when a time to not replace your sole mainframe management tool for your unemployment insurance thing is. It's interesting because that computer is written on the back of a bank software. It's not even its own thing. We adapted it. Bank software has to reconcile the books at night. People don't remember that unless you've been at this a while. Bill and I, we're talking about that. We're talking about something we know now, Bill. Load those punch cards up at night. When you go home and you come back next morning, the ledgers have reconciled. Our computer, I call her Whopper. Whopper, she has to reconcile every night. It's interesting. What you see as a customer is none of that. What you see on the customer is 100% web technology. It's 100% cloud technology, if you want to know the truth. You're communicating in the cloud like everybody else is. But the cloud computers ultimately communicate with Whopper when it's convenient for Whopper, which is 23 and a half hours a day that she's not reconciling the books. These types of terminology were never in our lexicon before. It's time to get a new computer. We're going to have to get new tools. The new tools that we need to power our ability to get people back to work are going to be numerous. We put a lot of tools in place during the pandemic. New training opportunities, both virtual, our metrics learning system. We've got nearly somewhere just under 100,000 Texans that take advantage of free courses, 5,000 courses you can go take on metrics learning. We put that in place because we thought, well, while people are at home on unemployment, they might want to work on some training, and they did that. New ways to look at our skills development fund where we could expedite ways that community colleges were able to upskill, reskill, new skill people. These kinds of tools will be absolutely critical. We did a lot of things during the pandemic with these new tools to make that work. We got to continue that. We've got to look for new ways to do it. It's not going to be the same way that it was at all. But we've got to find tools that match themselves to the tactics. It's like a bunch of teenagers at the dinner table, but I've got staff that will communicate with each other via Zoom in the same office suite. We're not even on different floors. We all have the same front desk. They will communicate with each other via Teams in the conference room. Put your phones away. It's time to eat dinner. I have 2 kids. I've said that too many times. We can't fit the tool. Into the tactic. By what that I mean, we can't decide how we're going to do things based on the tools that we have. Just because we have the tools, we've really got to explore the ways we can use them. It's important that we do that. Here's a tactic. It's really hard right now for folks to see how they're going to fill some of their entry-level jobs in the, just call it the hospitality space. So restaurants, hotels, different things like that. And if you want to, you can put retail sales in there because it would be applicable. It's very hard to find people in that space right now. There's actually a lot of reasons for that. More training is not probably going to fix that. Some training might fix that. Workforce Commission has a partnership with the Texas Restaurant Association to help people get their food handler's permit and their TABC certification. Why? They might not have thought they needed that. They might not have had the know-how to go get it. The fact is if you arm someone with a credential, you can probably get them to go to work where that credential might do some good. If you're not working, $12 an hour in fast food looks better. $12 an hour in fast food looks better at $20 an hour if you work in a better restaurant. It is a little bit of a tool and a tactic to find that partnership with the Restaurant Association to get people plugged into something they can make use of. Or training on site. Maybe this is a chance for people who bus tables for a living to wait tables for a living. Maybe this is time for someone who stocks shelves to work the register. I'm not saying people are consigned to a life of this entry-level job. I don't want that. I want everyone on the continuum moving upward. But the fact of the matter is whatever your position is today, if there's a tool and a tactic that we can use to advance your position, we need to make that available and, more importantly, figure out a way for everyone to be able to access that. But it really goes beyond that. Have you heard of the middle skills gap? How long have we been having this middle skills gap? Long time. We had a middle skills gap long before the pandemic ever hit, March 2020. We still have one today. 54% of the jobs in this state require some training post-high school, but don't require a college degree. And 45% of Texans have those credentials. Now, that's a 9% gap, all right? But there's 14 million jobs in the workforce. So half of that's 7 million. Like, I can't do math in my head real fast, so I was a communications guy for a reason. But 9% of 7 million? Is that still a big number? It is still a big number, and it represents an increase in wages. And so some tools and tactics have to be put in place to deal with that too. And I think we can build off of things like the metrics learning and the skills development fund enhancements that we saw during the pandemic that give us a chance to continue to enhance that. Again, can't match the tactic to the tool. Just because we want to use Zoom doesn't mean we need to use Zoom. Now, I love Zoom, but it doesn't solve every problem. And so we'll have to give some sort of eye to new tools as well. There'll be things that haven't been invented yet. I mean, did we have Zoom before the pandemic? We did. I never used it before then. And then I used it every day. What was that one before where you could call people and see them on the screen? Is that still around? If I forgot I was being filmed. Skype, if you're listening, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to say that. Hit me up on Zoom. I'll talk to you about it. Or Teams or WebEx. But also things we never thought about before. This middle skills gap concerns me. This middle skills gap concerns me because I've already reset myself to February 2020 when we still had the same middle skills gap. And I'm already looking at how do we get the 300,000 people that say they want to work but haven't been able to find a job. Is there a way we can plug them into this? But the numbers get sometimes even more mysterious than that. There's 2 million people working today in Texas who were not working in Texas or at least working for wages in Texas in February of 2020. Ponder that for just a second. Texas labor force is 14 million people, and 2 million people are working today that were not working in February 2020. Here's something even more interesting. There were 2 million people working in February 2020 that are not drawing wages today. Where did the first 2 million people go, and where did the second 2 million people come from? Some people moved here from other states. I can't blame them. I've been to other states. I've been to all the other states except for 2. Believe it or not, I've never been to Alaska, and I hadn't made it to Maine yet. From what I can tell from press reports, I'm good. I understand why you'd move here. There's a lot of reasons. It's a different speech for a different day. But 2 million people is a lot of people. And I'm sure people left different things they were doing. Maybe they were doing gig work. Maybe they saw an opportunity to get into wage earning labor. Maybe they had their own business and decided to go to work for somebody else. Maybe they merged with somebody and sort of went to work for somebody else. A lot of things happen. But 2 million people is a lot of people. And if we're thinking of new tools and tactics, I need to think about how to capitalize on groups of people like that we can identify. 300,000 people not working and they really want to. 2 million people show up in the workforce and we can't find the other 2 million. There's a lot of upside potential for the state of Texas on this. And so we'll continue to expand things like the Skills Development Fund. We'll continue to expand things like metrics and push those out there. But I think this middle skills area gives us a great opportunity to advance people who are in entry-level jobs and move them into something that's way more meaningful for themselves and their family. You might ask yourself, are you serious about this, Bryan? The answer is going to be, yeah, real serious. So about 2 months ago, the Workforce Commission advanced $18 million as a first payment to really understand how we can fix this middle skills gap. And with that come both new tools and new tactics. How cool would it be if you could just reach in your pocket and pull out something like this and type in what you know, type in what you have, and then it spits back to you, hey, you're in the wrong field. You can make way more money with your qualifications in this other field. Or, same app, what if I could just say I'm a dental hygienist today, but it's very unfulfilling for me. I don't like having my fingers in people's mouths all day. I didn't realize I was going to have to do that when I signed up for this. These community colleges put on a real good sales campaign. You got to watch. Wouldn't it be cool to type that in and say, hey, you've got some basic skills that translate to these other fields, and you can get training in those fields and move into a job there. We haven't done this tactic before. We haven't done a tool like that before. And $18 million is not going to pay for the whole thing, but it's going to pay for us to get started to find out what's really going to work for people. Now, what I just laid out for you is not a workforce-only initiative. We got this thing in the state called the Tri-Agency Initiative. This is only going to work if we start long before kids even hit daycare. This is a 20-year runway. Like, you pretty much got to go all the way through school before you can work in this state. Do we know we're giving people the skills they need in school to be successful in whatever it is they want to do? Do we know that? And do we have all the tools and tactics put in place to ensure that we can always know that? The answer is, if you want to know, it's a very complicated government answer, but I'll give it to you. The answer is sort of. I'm here to inspire confidence. No, the answer is sort of. We're doing great in some respects, and we see opportunities for improvement in some others. My colleagues at both the Higher Education Coordinating Board, that's the junior colleges, the community colleges, the trade and technical schools, and the universities, and TEA, that's K through 12. And then pre-K is kind of us and TEA. We're seeing opportunities where we can plug into all of that. But tools like the app I want to develop to get people into more middle skills jobs, we've got to translate those all the way down through school. So this is a next week project, and this is a 20 years next week project, all at the same time. We'll continue to make investments in the tools and the technology and really the new tactics that we need to make sure that happens. Because it has to happen. Now, along the way, we'll continue to do things that we've always done. There are groups that we can identify. Veterans coming out of the military. Foster youth that are graduating from high school. We know a lot about these groups because people collect data on these groups. I think most of us are uncomfortable with being in a database somewhere, so I don't want to create new databases. If Larry the chatbot does. What I want to take is the information that we already have at hand and put it in a way that you can access that information and be empowered to get the decision what's best for you and your family. And that decision is what am I going to do to make the living that I need to make? It'll be fun. It's actually going to be a lot of fun. We've got so many opportunities laid out before us, and every employer that creates a new job gives us an opportunity to work on that. Every time someone comes to Texas and says, hey, I think Texas is where I need to create a new job, it gives us an opportunity to put new terms, new tools, new tactics in place to help them achieve that. 14 million people working in this state for wages. And I think there's upside for more. Groups just like this one that are going to be able to get that done. TFC doesn't do it by themselves, neither does TA or the core board. Great folks, but none of this happens in a vacuum. And none of this happens without teamwork. So you can have all the new terms, new tools, new tactics you want, but if you don't have the teamwork to make it happen, it's just never. What a great time to be a Texan. What a great time to be a Texan moving forward to create and build those things that we always wanted to see for a highly enthusiastic group of Texans that want those things. Man, I can't think of a better place to be, a better time to really tackle this issue and move forward on it. I don't ever want to have to experience a pandemic again. To find out that the truths we thought about this state were in fact truths, but they are. So let's capitalize on those. Let's move forward. We've got some opportunities here and we should take them. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you, Commissioner. And both Commissioner Daniel and Angela said the economy is roaring back, and they were both correct. I'm going to touch on some of those figures briefly for Dallas County and the DFW area. My name is Richard Perez, and I'm the Research Manager for Workforce Solutions Greater Dallas. We are the Workforce Board for Dallas County. And I've been in workforce for almost 28 years. Started out at TWC, it was TEC then, but it's been a long journey, and I've been to a few workforce boards, and I like the work. But I prepared some highlights on the local economy from the workforce perspective. But one thing is for certain, there is lots of jobs available. We had a hiring event yesterday at Gillies, just the other side of downtown Dallas, hiring red, white, and U. We had over 10,000 job openings. There was a little over 100 employers, both virtual and in person. And, you know, it's what we have to do to get people back to work. One of the performance metrics that the Texas Workforce Commission has for the workforce boards is how we can put claimants back to work within 10 weeks. And I'm happy to say Dallas is #1 in that metrics, but it isn't just Dallas. Tarrant is #2, and the North Central Texas board area is #3. So the DFW area has been doing a great job at getting people back to work. So let's see. And I think, you know, like I was saying, this says a lot about moving jobs and the great work done by employers and the 3 boards on what we do, which is connecting job seekers to employers. But now I'm going to move on to some highlights in the presentation. And I am going to mention February 2020 as a comparison for some of them, but the unemployment rate for September for Dallas County is 4.8%. That has been on a downward trend, which is great for the last few months. The lowest rate, it's been at the lowest rate since March 2020, more or less when the pandemic began. From August to September, looking at the employment stats, there was a gain of 4,669 jobs. But something more important in the employment numbers, and it was sort of touched on, when you compare the employment number from February 2020, which for Dallas County was the highest employment number that goes back to the series, which starts for us in 1990, it has been eclipsed by 5,981 jobs. So, you know, we've been doing some great work on the job recovery. 68.1% of the UI claimants have returned to work. That number is 391,940. Still have some work to do, but I think that's a great start. The top chart, that this is looking at the DFW area, the DFW MSA specifically. So what the top chart shows is the number for the current employment statistics comparing September 21 to February 2020. So professional and business services is at 104%. So they're back, followed by trade, transportation and utilities, financial activities, government's almost there, manufacturing is almost there, and the leisure and hospitality, which I think had the biggest hit during the pandemic, they're at 93.7%. The graph below that, that shows the CES numbers, again, for the DFW region. It compares 2018 September to 2021. So looking at those, you know, 2 time periods, professional and business services has gained 60,600 jobs. Trade, 49,900. And I'll just go to the leisure and hospitality. They're still short 16,000 jobs. So I also wanted to show where the jobs are. And the Texas Workforce Commission has a great job matching system called Work in Texas. So I looked in just yesterday for Dallas County, where are the major jobs by group? And this should be of no surprise to some of you in the room. Transportation and material moving leads the way. Those have the most jobs in the area, followed by computer and mathematical jobs. And what those are IT jobs. And I know there's a lot of IT employers in this room, and I'm sure it's of no surprise that, you know, there's some positions needing filled there. And then, you know, just all the other groupings, office administrative support, protective service, which includes both security type jobs and correctional, as well as police officers. So when I know since there are a lot of IT employers in the room, if you're wondering what specific occupations are those in, at the bottom, software developers leads the pack. Those are the most positions. It's followed by engineers, as well as computer support, project management, and just all the other ones that fit in. When you look at healthcare, no surprise, but registered nurses lead the way with the number of openings, followed by medical assistants, nursing assistants, critical care nurses, and LVNs. So I just wanted to touch on where the economy is, both in Dallas County and the MSA, before we introduce the panel. So that's what I have, but the quick message is the economy's back. We're growing jobs. We're welcoming workers from other states, that are graduating from high school, which I have a senior. So he'll be entering hopefully the workforce soon. And we just do what we can to connect the job seekers to the employers, which is everyone in the room. Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Caldwell-McLean. I'm the Vice President of Education and Workforce here at the Dallas Regional Chamber, and I am honored to get to moderate our panel discussion today. So as I introduce the panelists, I will ask them to join us up here and choose a chair. First, we have Black, who is the President and CEO of On Target Supplies and Logistics, a regional logistics management firm with global customers and international responsibilities. Come on up, Trey. He has proven himself as a business, community, and civic leader in Dallas, and he has been placed in unique positions for appointments to boards and committees throughout the city. Most recently, he served on the boards of Workforce Solutions, Greater Dallas, the Black and Oak Cliff Chambers of Commerce, and the Senior Source. He was also previously a commissioner for the City of Dallas Community Development Commission, where Trey and I were able to serve together. Next, we have Jennifer Chandler, who's the president of Bank of America Dallas. Jennifer directs effective collaboration across multiple lines of business at Bank of America Dallas, advancing purposeful engagement with client priorities. Jennifer is deeply committed to corporate stewardship, serving on the Bank of America Foundation Committee and promoting a culture of volunteerism and community support. Born and raised in Dallas County, Jennifer is very active in the Greater Dallas community. She is a Leadership Dallas 2011 alumni, which we love here at the DRC, and a 40 Under 40 Dallas Business Journal honoree. She also serves on the boards of the Dallas Citizens Council and here at the DRC. And finally, our panelist, Dr. Piper Wilkins, the Vice Chancellor of Workforce and Advancement for Dallas College. With over 25 years of experience in community colleges, Dr. Wilkins is skilled at collaborating with business and industry, public agencies, and community and faith-based organizations to meet the needs of students, employers, and the community. Dr. Wilkins served as the Chief Advancement Officer and Executive Director of the Dallas County Community College District Foundation from 2015 to 2020 and has an extensive background in fundraising and resource development, planning, facilitation, and partnership building. Join me in welcoming our panelists.
So let's get started. So I think that the chairman did an excellent job of outlining what our economy has looked like in the past 18 months, much like a carnival ride, as we heard, ups and downs. And it's dramatically impacting the ways that we do business and prepare our workforce. To facilitate our economic recovery, the need for talent is greater than ever.
I'd like to first turn to Trey and Jennifer and ask, how has this impacted your workforce needs as industry in?
Well, I would say overall, it obviously had a major impact on us, and in some ways, a very positive impact. So, in particular, our shift to digital was amplified. I know many will probably agree with this statement. So, a lot of the great work that we had underway originally to focus on technology, digital, was put into work very quickly. So, we were able to mobilize and move about 85% of our employee base to home. And we're a company of over 213,000 people. So that was a very significant shift for us. But overall, I would say a positive one. So we've adopted some great behaviors and routines from that and created some efficiencies. It did create some initial needs that I know everybody had to deal with, in particular childcare and needs like that, and elder care were something that we had to quickly evolve and adjust to. And I'm so proud of the firm, and Bryan Moynihan was very flexible during that time. We had already had a robust benefits program and a number of great programs, but we had to get creative and very quickly, and I will applaud him for working with us to do that. So we very quickly shifted to a program where you could hire a loved one or neighbor or someone else to come into the home. And we ended up paying for over 1.7 million days of childcare. So if you think about that shift and how we evolved, it was substantial and had an enormous impact. And with that, we were able to retain a number of our employees. So there's great things and things we'll continue to evaluate and learn from. And again, that digital shift, I could go into a great bit of detail around that. And I loved your conversation around AI and technology. I would just say at a high level, a lot of that work was very much expedited. And we were also able to step up with our support on the mental health side. As many of you all know, it was a very difficult time for many ways, and our employees took advantage of those services, and that was another way we were able to be there to help their families and help them through a very difficult time. So we've continued to adjust and evaluate, but it took a lot of flexibility in our industry. And as you all may recall, the financial services industry was very involved with a program you may remember as PPP. So we were building a program with the Small Business Association. So it was not only the impact of our employees, but being there for so many of our clients that are business owners and all that they were going through. But I would say, again, with that work, we learned a great deal, and we're still using that today.
Good stuff. Before I say a few words here, I just want to say, Elizabeth, thank you so much for having us. This is a very important conversation. I see some of my folks, Linda and Richard and a few others from Workforce Solutions when I was on the board. It's one of the better ran organizations in the county. And so thank you guys for y'all's hard work that you guys have dedicated to workforce over the many years. You know, this has just been incredible for a company like On Target Supplies and Logistics. We have about 250 employees. And when this pandemic hit, we just kind of buckled down, trusted each other, and know that, hey, look, we got to be along for the ride. And our workforce needs did evolve, right? I mean, we have all seen the news. We've been reading the newspapers. Supply chain issues are just incredible right now. And so we had to make sure that our workforce evolved, right, with this evolution of supply chain management that we're all living through right now. We needed to bring in workforce that was more focused on technology, all right? Just the days of just moving boxes are over, right? You need to be more oriented with technology. We needed to make sure our workforce not only understood technology, but had greater awareness, financial awareness, operational awareness, so they could really help bring greater efficiencies to the supply chain. So we had to do a lot of training, and we couldn't do it in person. So we started a learning management system that we hadn't done before, so we could make sure that we were consistently training our workforce. Another thing, and you mentioned it, Jennifer, is the mental health. We had to bring in healthcare professionals from around the country in order to work with our workforce on, how do we get through this pandemic? I ended up calling all 250 or so of our employees through this pandemic, and I did that several times. And sure, we were deemed essential, But the fact of the matter is, these folks had spouses that were out of work. Instead of that one paycheck that was helping a family, they had to help their extended family. And so just the pressure of this was just incredible. And there was so much uncertainty, right? There was so much uncertainty not only in our business, but also in their lives. And so the mental health component was huge. And as people are coming back into the workforce, some of the folks, I was talking to a young lady yesterday, she's single. She said that she had spent about 8 months in her apartment. So can you imagine coming back into the workforce? It's an adjustment. I was joking around with some folks the other day. I said, if I'm on vacation for a couple of weeks and I get back to the office, even I have to have a couple of, more extra cups of coffee, and a couple of minutes of just. So can you imagine being out of the workforce for 6, 12 months, coming back into the workforce, having all these outside pressures? And so we spend a lot of time with mental health. I mean, look, I think that it's an exciting time for business. It's an exciting time for folks like us that's in supply chain management. We're looking at extraordinary growth in our employment base, but it's tough. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation on this panel about all the creative things that we're doing in order to make sure that people are trained and certified and they're ready to work.
If I may add, it reminded me of an additional thought, and that was skill training along the lines of what you were saying. We had a major shift, as you can imagine. I mentioned the need on the PPP program. So we were able to take folks maybe that had been in a banking center, critical staff that were high risk and couldn't be in person or working on mortgages, and quickly shift them over to new jobs. And what that told us is we could do that very effectively and much quicker than what we had been doing. So if you think back to that AI and looking at skills and mapping that into jobs, we were so quickly able to do that with thousands of employees. So that taught us a great deal. And so with that, we're continuing to expedite that skill training so that we can quickly shift folks into the jobs of the future that we don't even know we need today.
That's absolutely wonderful. And it reminds me very much of something we heard during the pandemic. I heard someone say, robots don't get COVID-19. And you kind of chuckle, but then you realize it, right? That as we were in this instance, we all saw it at the grocery store, suddenly there was more self-check outs with robots and things where what can we do if people can't leave their homes? And so you both made the point that this happened and you were able to quickly get your workforce. I love what you said, Chairman, of new skilled, not just upskilled, but new skilled into what was needed at the time. So I'm going to turn to Piper because I know that you were boots on the ground with the students, and so much happened at Dallas College in this time. So could you talk a little about how you all pivoted during the COVID-19 crisis?
We were faced with the need to go 100% remote instantly. We left for spring break in 2020 and we never came back. And when you have a college, 7 colleges at that time, with over 70,000 students and 7,000 employees, most of whom work in a building, in an office. It's very difficult to do that and to do it quickly. But we did, and we saw that we could. It was not easy for students. It wasn't easy for employees either. But when you think about our students who are primarily first generation students, many low income students, live in neighborhoods that don't have broadband, they don't own the technology to do the schoolwork online. Really challenging for those students. So we've really been able to provide a tremendous level of support. And somewhat fortuitously, I guess, we've made some decisions prior to the pandemic. Our board, our chancellor were leading us to become one college instead of 7. As Dallas County Community College District for 50 years plus, we had 7 different colleges, 7 or 14 or 27 different ways of doing things because of that. And it made it difficult for students to navigate. So we made that decision prior to the pandemic. We had started down the path of consolidating some things and making different services and more services available to students. We had started to create what we call a student care network, where we were focused on making sure students' basic needs were met so they could be successful in college and get the training and the education they needed. So a lot of that was in progress, but not fully developed at that point. So we, again, like everyone else, quickly made changes. And in some ways, the pandemic being remote, being virtual, made it easier to do that. We were also the beneficiary, like all other colleges and universities, of a lot of federal funds to help us support students. To date, of the $74 million we've received to help students directly with aid for emergency situations, we've been able to distribute almost $50 million of that. We've seen the needs really in housing and food and transportation seems to be the biggest needs that our students have had. So that's really, how we pivoted and what we've done since then. Probably just amazingly so, considering what we've been doing this in a pandemic, the major reorganization, and trying to really help our students just stay enrolled and complete what they started so they can get on board.
Yeah, you all, again, I hear Chairman say, well, we're going to get a new system right before the pandemic hits. Maybe not a good time, but you all did it. You completely transitioned from a model that you had for 50 years into one Dallas college. So with that, I want to move on to another topic that I think is on everybody's mind here as a business leader. In recent months, we've heard something called the Great Resignation. Not just here in Texas, North Texas, we're seeing across the country, high turnover, folks going into new careers, people making transitions, whether it was during the pandemic or now. And as all employers in the region, we were really wondering what are some of the company benefits and quality of life in the workplace policies you're putting in place? Because it's not just about wages, because they're seeing wages go up. And what are some short and long-term strategies to realign the pipeline so we can increase that talent retention once we're able to get them in the right place?
One of the things that we're doing at On Target is really investing a lot in training development. And when I mean training development, leadership development for our mid-managers all the way to folks that are entry-level positions. We're finding superstars that can really be leaders in our company. And I think a lot of times you're just not looking at that entry-level employee and saying, hey, you can go all the way, and really investing in those people. And so that's something that's been fantastic that we've done from just a short-term pipeline development. Another thing is that there's so many technical colleges that are here in North Texas and really throughout our state that we made sure that we did a better job partnering with them in order to get that database of employees or possible employees that could come work for us. And so that's been another thing. I think the third thing from a short-term perspective is, Dallas is one of the more philanthropic communities in this country. There's so many awesome nonprofits. And so we partner with a series of nonprofits that work with folks that are coming out of domestic violence situations, right? And need an opportunity to make that first paycheck to kind of get on their feet, right? And so we did that. We work with nonprofits that were working with folks that are just learning how to read and write for the first time. And maybe we're making $7 an hour or so. And now with the certifications and the training, now they're able to make maybe 15 plus, right? And so those are some of the things we're doing and partnering in order to create more of a workforce pipeline. I think on a long-term perspective, Elizabeth, we really wanted to make sure that we're providing not just a financial income for our employees, but we're really making sure that they had an educational income, making sure that through our learning management system and other curriculum that we developed, then they were feeling that every single day, every single week, they were feeling they were just a little bit smarter. And they were coming to work to not only make some money, but also to learn a few things. And I think the third thing is that we wanted to make sure they were provided the psychological income. They felt good about what we were doing together, getting through this pandemic, making sure that we were continuing to add greater efficiencies to supply chains, and that really did help us get through this thing. We did a better job of also making sure that as we brought new employees in, then they really did share our values. And they wanted to be a part of reimagining the culture of our company and maybe even the culture of American business as we know it. And that was something that was powerful. And as I as we did this, we even brought in another level of assessments through culture assessments, culture indexes, to make sure that as we brought people in, it was actually a good fit. So that, because we as a small company, we're not a Bank of America, we're not an Amazon, that turnover kills small businesses like ours. And so we are doing every single thing that we can do to make sure that it's a good fit. And we're really focusing again on that financial income, but also educational income and psychological income.
Great comments, Trey. And I would say, although we're a much bigger company, a lot of similarities. And I love that you started with it's not all about wages. And I would say at Bank of America, we're very consistent with the chart that we saw just a few moments ago, and we're at pre-pandemic levels. And it's for a number of reasons. But with that being said, we don't take it for granted. I spend several hours of my day focused on retention. I was on a call with our senior leaders this morning working on it in particular. But I point back to a few things. As we think about the pandemic in particular, the fact that our CEO, Bryan Moynihan, could come out and say no layoffs gave so much reassurance to every single one of our teammates during that time that they were committed to us. Think about the pressure we were all under, and for him to come out and make a statement like that, it meant so much to our folks. In addition, we continue to add to our award-winning benefits, so 16 weeks paternity, maternity leave. I mentioned it earlier, but it's not only childcare, it's adult care. We think about loved ones you're dealing with, backup care, and being innovative with what that looks like so that you can serve your family. I loved your comment earlier about giving back to the community, and not to give away too many trade secrets, but what I tell a lot of folks, I used to be a high school teacher and I have a passion for our community. At Bank of America, you get to do both. We give 2 hours of volunteer service hours a week for you to leave your desk, go out and serve others in the community. We made $1 billion commitment, which is now a $1.25 billion commitment. And our folks give us insights on where to invest those funds in the community. So it's not the dollars only, it's getting back, giving back. So it truly is the culture. We also have skill training. And to your point, when you come into Bank of America, you now have a minimum wage of $21 an hour. We've committed for that to be $25 an hour by 2025. And that is a statement saying when you come to Bank of America, you have an opportunity for a career. This is not a job. So if you think about our talent pipeline, you may start in a banking center. I'm an example over my 20 years working hard and working my way up. We show that to each and every employee, and we give them the tuition reimbursement, the resources they need around them to do that. I know not everybody can come to the plate the way we can with those dollars, but it points back to culture. And I believe every organization can do that of every size, and it's about being committed to your people. And for us to serve our clients and our community, our people come first in all that we do.
I think as a college, we're an employer, and we have a workforce that we care very much about. But our focus really has been students, and our students have needed us to be back in person, be back in the classroom. And so, for us, it's been a little more challenging as far as our own workforce, and to be able to do, really flexible work schedules or do things very, very much different because we need to be there for our students. So now, we are finished with our reorganization. It's awesome to be able to say that. We spent a lot of the time with our workforce actually doing the reorganization, hiring new teams, putting people together in different ways so that we can serve the community better, including our employers that we work with. So I can't say that we've made a lot of, tremendous change with our own internal folks when it comes to different ways to work yet, but I think that's coming.
There, Mike. Thank you. So kind of to your point, Piper, of how you've been so focused on the students and making sure that they are retaining and completing. If we look at the demographics of Texas, they are rapidly changing. By 2030, we know that over 60% of the workforce is projected to be Black or Hispanic. We also know, as we heard from our chairman, that more than 60% of jobs are require some form of post-secondary. So that may be a certificate all the way up to a doctorate. However, we also know that in our community, Black and Hispanic young adults are 3 times less likely to earn a living wage than their white counterparts. How are your organizations specifically addressing educational access and workforce readiness for Black and Hispanic students, workers, and residents? Piper?
Yeah, I'm happy to start with that. Black and Hispanic students make up the majority of our student population. We are at Dallas College now approaching 50% Hispanic in our student population, around 24% African American. So that's who we serve, and that is what we think about, and the lens through which we try to work with everybody. We are doing a variety of things with a variety of partners, and Chairman Daniel, mentioned teams and working with teams and other people that are committed to the same thing you are. And we are doing that. And we are doing that so big in this past year in the pandemic with some of this, social unrest that we saw in this country. And a lot of partners came to the table to help us with that. Bank of America is one. Jennifer sitting right next to me. We've launched a partnership together that they are doing all over the country specifically to help African American, Hispanic students be successful. The disconnect is really in workforce readiness. We have the training programs that students can come take, learn, get the skills, but they're not necessarily ready to go into the workforce. They have other social skills they need to learn, work-ready skills, and Bank of America is really helping us do that. PepsiCo is another one. We're working with them in a very similar type arrangement, very focused on African American and Hispanic students. I could just name a ton of partners, but a lot of investment to help us do that. Credentials is a big piece as well. We have really taken some new tactics. I'll steal that from Chairman Daniel, and thought about how to embed various credentials and micro-credentials into coursework, into curriculum, into programs, so that a student may take 1 or 2 courses with us, but during those 1 or 2 courses, they earn 3, 4, 5 different industry-recognized credentials that can help start them on the pathway to a career. It may not be where they want to start and stay, but they can start and move on because of what value we've added to those programs. That's really how we're working that.
You are doing a great deal of work, and it's an important question. So first of all, I think you all know you have to measure what you're going to expect from folks. And so we have a human capital report, and we have full transparency on our diversity at every level of the organization. So you're all welcome to check that out on our website. And I'm pleased to say we have a very diverse workforce, 50% women, and we typically mirror the communities we serve. That being said, I look at it here locally at every level of the organization, and we do have an opportunity in particular for Hispanic, Black, Latino talent, and we are working with a number of partners. So Dallas College, of course, and that's a very specific program. We committed $1 million, but not only that, but my teammates are meeting weekly with Dallas College on a skill-based program to get folks immediately into jobs. That's one example. We're working with Unidos, we're working with Europe, and if you would like to work with us, please let us know because we need to expedite the work. The reality is it also takes boots on the ground. We have to be in communities and show these jobs are available. I was in Oak Cliff just last week speaking at a high school, and we'll talk to just about anyone who will listen. This is a great career path for them. We're also working to produce materials in language for folks, and I think that's incredibly important. Radio, being present in these communities where we can attract more diverse talent. And I mentioned it earlier, but it's to really make sure folks understand when they come to us, it's not just a job, but a career. I see it, to your point earlier, Commissioner Daniel, that this is a great opportunity for the state of Texas. People want to be here. And one benefit we have, and we're a global firm, is I can put a position online, and we have folks that want to move here from all across the country. So I agree with your statement that there is no better time, no better place. And I see that as great opportunity, but also great responsibility on us. And that's why I look at those numbers each and every day. And if we don't move the dial on that, that's, in my opinion, more work that we need to do because the opportunity is there.
I'm really proud of our company, Ready to Work, and the stuff that we're doing on this topic, Elizabeth. Ready to Work was started about 15 years ago to really address a need and formalize a series of ideas that my folks were doing back in almost 40 years ago. We were getting folks in the projects off the street and getting them to work. And so what we're involved in right now in a lot of brown and African American communities, and even rural communities, and I don't think that needs to be forgotten, is that we're working with 8th and 9th graders on things such as professionalism. We are working with kids on financial literacy. The fact of the matter is a lot of these kids don't have a mom and daddy like I had that was able to be at the dinner table and talk about how to manage money. And so we're doing that, all right? And then also health literacy, right? It's huge, especially for employers. I mean, since the Affordable Health Care Act, premiums have gone up 200, 300%. And so instead of making sure that when they become employees, they are not getting the most expensive drugs possible, they are getting those generic drugs, making sure that they're noticing things like lines around their neck because they're having diabetes, making sure that they're not calling sick all the time, right? well, then you really have to teach people about financial health literacy. And that's what we're doing with so many of these kids. And then by the time they are juniors and seniors, they're going through a series of certifications around logistics, supply chain management. And it's just absolutely fantastic because, especially in this pandemic, a lot of these kiddos are having to really help support their families. And with that being the case, these kids need to be able to have the certifications. They can go into an Amazon and make $20+ an hour, or come work for On Target to make $18 to $22 an hour. These things are extraordinarily important. And this is the really cool thing, is that 82% of On Target's employees are homeowners. And I think that's powerful because of what we're going through in this country, in this state, in this city. In this city, we have conversations around gentrification. This is the great way to fight gentrification. When you have a great paying job, you can buy that home, and you can make sure that you're not not going through gentrification, but you're actually being a part of revitalization in your community. So it can be a powerful thing of just making sure that people are ready to work, and working with ISDs and charter schools and other folks to make sure that these folks have an opportunity to succeed and help the great state of Texas.
If I may, I have to tag on to your comment on housing being with Bank of America. So I have to put a plug in because we could not agree with you more. We have a home ownership grant program where we can cover $17,500 in the closing cost and down payment with a low interest rate. And many homes, I was on a call this morning, and thousands in Dallas do qualify and are available. So we are right there with you, not only for our teammates, but many others. We know that is fundamental in economic mobility. So had to tag on for that. And it's all on our website. We would love for more people to take advantage of that.
And I think those are great examples too of it's not just about wages. There's so much more that plays into our workforce. How do we develop our workforce, retain our workforce? So thank you. I'm loving this conversation. So now I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk. We've seen a recent inflow of federal dollars through the American Rescue Plan and additional funding through other forms of legislation, such as infrastructure bills. How would they impact your organization's workforce development? This is a little bit towards Piper, but also how can industry help capitalize on these new resources to make sure that our dollars are going as far as they can?
Absolutely. We have been the beneficiary of millions of dollars in aid from, various acts over the past 18 to 24 months, 18 plus months. Half of what we've gotten is that emergency aid for students. That is direct aid that we cut a check, make a direct deposit to a student in the form of cash to meet whatever that emergency need is. The other half, however, we can use for a variety of reasons or purposes. And we've done some really amazing things, and technology is one of those. We've purchased tablets and laptops and hotspots for students to make that ability for them to actually continue to participate in online education when we were remote. We've done some things internally to make sure our online programs and coursework and degrees are up to speed. They're high quality. They can be accessed by everybody. That's really the federal dollars. From the state level, though, working with Texas Workforce Commission, early on, they did a series of COVID-19 skills development fund grants. And Chairman Daniel mentioned the one with the Greater Dallas Restaurant or the Greater Texas Restaurant Association. We participated in that, really trying to help our, restaurant partners survive in early COVID days. A number of other businesses that needed help during that time. We continue to do that. We have been the beneficiary of significant dollars from in a program called TRUE, Texas Reskilling and Upskilling Grants. We've developed some new, different pathways to employment for students, training programs in logistics and supply chain, in cloud support administrator on the IT side, on the healthcare side, really looking at telehealth, virtual health. So using those dollars to look forward and to really dig into what the labor market says we need to be training people to do now, immediately, but also building a pathway so that a student can progress, come back, take more coursework if they need to, get additional certifications, and get a better job in that pipeline to that career. So that's really, from an investment standpoint, from all these dollars, that's how we're spending it at Dallas College.
We actually come at it from a different lens because many of those funds were not intended for a large organization like ours, and we fully understand that. So I would say from a very different perspective, we were able to see immediate cash flow. So it was more on the processing side. As you can imagine what that meant with checks being issued, people walking into banking centers, and we were trying to staff those with critical staff. So worked through that immediately to be there for folks when they needed us most. And as it relates to additional investments and spend, we stay close to the legislature. We stay close to partners like the DRC and where those funds are going, to programs like yours, Piper, at Dallas College, to see how we can collaborate and amplify those. But again, many of those funds were not intended for a company of our size. We did see the support it provided for many of the families in our community. We saw small business owners and all the great work there. So again, we were there to advise them, help them along the way, but from a slightly different lens.
You know, I'm excited about this new era of government spending, right? And you know, is it scary? Yeah, I don't know how we're going to pay this back, but I think there's a pathway. You know, I'm excited about, you know, the 65 billion going into improvements of transmission and distribution. I know that Encore is one of our sponsors today. I'm excited about the 65 billion and electronic vehicles and the charging station infrastructure that will help address some things with emissions and climate change. I'm excited about the $7.5 billion in order to help with things around broadband expansion and other things. And the reason why I'm so excited about it, and the reason why I think that it's good policy as it relates to this infrastructure bill and other things, is because we can actually get the American workforce into these jobs of the future. And I think that's powerful. We can have American workers that are actually being a part of making this country better. We can make sure that there are actually improvements in these folks' communities, and they can be actually have their hands on this, right? And I think that the worry in DC or even in the state of paying this back, right? I think it's about a $500 billion in new spending. Well, then I think there will be a new generation of a tax base that will be created that can pay for it. And I'm really excited about that. And I think the last thing that this big spending will do, I think, if done right, is really create a new generation of leadership in communities that need it the most. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the last time the biggest New Deal took place back in the 30s, it was not very inclusive. There was not brown and African American people that were included in that economy. And in this New Deal, and I don't care if you believe in making America great again or you believe in building back better, this will be a more inclusive package in the history of this country. And so I'm very excited.
Well, that's a fantastic point to end on. Can you please join me in thanking our panelists? We so appreciate everyone being here today and all of our panelists joining. I would be remiss if I did not thank our sponsors one more time, our co-presenting sponsors of Texas Mutual and BGSF. Thank you so much. This is the second year they have both presented this event, and we are so grateful. We also want to thank our gold sponsors, Amazon and Bank of America, who have been strong supporters of our workforce initiatives for a number of years. And as Trey mentioned, Encore is our silver sponsor for the event today. I would now like to introduce one of our representatives from our co-presenting sponsor, BGSF, Eric Peters, who's the president of the professional division at BGSF, for some closing remarks.
This is fantastic. We are very, very proud to be here today. And first of all, thank you, Elizabeth, for your comments and terrific conversation. Chairman Daniel, thank you. Trey Black, Dr. Wilkins, Jennifer. I mean, let me tell you, we get asked a lot of these questions. For those of you that may not know, BGSF, we're a publicly traded company. We're here today due to acquisitions. We've acquired companies all over the country that are in workforce solutions, both consulting, staffing, recruiting. And, you know, people ask me all the time, well, gosh, you guys must love this. You're busy right now. Well, we need people too. And so we are fully invested in workforce development. And just with a couple of quick closing comments around some things that we are doing, but also that we are seeing people do, because I get asked that a lot. Hey, I don't need your help today, Eric, but what are you seeing other companies do? It's got to be around the first thing, diversity, equity, inclusion. We said that. We have to be reaching out to these communities. We put our money where our mouth is, and we hired an outstanding director this year to look at that for us as an organization. What are we doing to meet those demographic needs? 60%, I think was said, coming up in the next couple of years. So reaching out to those communities and then training. So we're getting involved with not only the college educated and degree folks, but going to high schools and talking to people. We participated in an interview contest with the state fair where we got high school kids together and put them through a mock interview process. How do you apply for a job? How do you write a cover letter? How do you interview? How do you send a thank you letter? Remember we used to get those when we would hire people, right? Kids need to know that. And it's funny, but the eye-opening thing, the piece of hope that we had coming out of that contest, the kids were excellent. The kids were excellent. And not just the top 6, but we put mentorships with all of them that participated. So that's key. Certification programs. What are you doing in your organizations? What are we doing in our organization to help people get the right certifications and pay for those certifications? So to your point earlier, Chairman, about how they stair step. How do you stair step people? You have to hold their hand and walk them along the way. What are the right certifications? What are the right training programs? What are we doing to take people that are at one skill set level and get them to another? We're putting those programs together. We're taking the step along with our client partners to say, we'll participate in that. We'll help you build those programs. We'll do the webinars. We'll do the contingent education credit trainings. We'll do the skills seminars. We will help write the blogs. We'll help write the white papers to teach people, oh, you don't understand cloud migration? We'll tell you about that. Our organization focuses in the light industrial space or in the real estate space, both on the multifamily side as well as commercial, and then professional services, IT, accounting, and finance. You saw the IT stats. That's my world. I oversee those organizations that we purchased. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've never seen it like this, ever. And so the companies that are doing these programs, the companies that are getting together with these skills assessments, the companies that are saying, how do you take that person, for example, a high school student that may not be going to college, maybe we get them in as a help desk, service desk coordinator, fielding those calls. My password doesn't work. I need you to reset this. I need you to look and help me clear out my cache on my internet browser. Basic fundamentals we can help people with to then develop them up through areas. That's where the key is going to be. And I'm here today on behalf of our powerful CEO, Beth Garvey. This is one of her passions, and she leads the drive with us on this. We have to be part of the solution. And so what I would just leave you with, one last little statement. We ask ourselves this all the time in our organization. What are you doing? What are you doing to make the change? Awesome panel today. Fantastic things that you heard. Now, what are you going to do? That's what Beth always tells us. What are you going to do about it? And whose hand are you going to grab to walk along the way? So that's critical. So again, thank you. Great comments today. I do want to highlight a couple of things that are coming up for the DRC. So if you enjoyed this event, first of all, Thursday, December 2nd, DRC is going to host the year-end conversation with Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson at the Fairmont. So obviously really looking forward to that and some of the things that he's going to talk about. That's going to be the first DRC event back to the ballroom setting, correct? Which, round of applause for that. Can we just, we've all waited so long to get back into a room, haven't we? I miss my flip-flops too, but these shoes are feeling pretty good right about this point. Second, next year, January 25th, the DRC will hold this annual meeting at the Meyerson Symphony Center, which is a premier event, of course, that we have on the calendar. And that's going to be CEO of Southwest, incoming CEO Bob Jordan of Southwest Airlines, Melissa Reif, Romer CEO, and of course, chairwoman of Container Store. So the list of these events are, of course, on the website at dallaschamber.org. So thank you guys very much. Be safe out there. And team, thanks for having us to partner.